What's up, friends? Welcome back to World of Wargaming. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about tusks. In Tusk, a group of cavemen or Victorians or whatever are hunting mammoths, or sometimes dinosaurs. And one of early man's greatest tools in that hunt was fire. Today we're going to be taking a look at how I made these fire marker pieces here for the game of Tusk. So let's clear all this stuff out of the way. Let's get the table down to its dirtiest, most bare and naked state, and let's get after it. So here we are, friends, at the dirty work table. Let's start off by talking about the materials that we're going to need for this. So I'm going to be using this corrugated plastic that I salvaged from a dumpster a few weeks ago. I think this is going to work really well because as opposed to regular cardboard, this shouldn't bow up. This should pretty well keep its shape. We're going to need some painter's tape to cover up the edges because I don't want that gap to be showing between the pieces of corrugation. We need a blade. We need some texture paste. We need some white glue, some black paint, a brush for the texture paste, a brush to do some dry brushing, and various flocks to suit your taste. Also, probably going to need a can of primer. I'm going to use black. You can use whatever color you want. We're going to start with our corrugated plastic, or foam board, or plastic card, or whatever you want to use. Now, if you are planning to play Tusk at the 6 or 15 millimeter scale, then just get some 25 millimeter MDF bases. It'll be a lot easier, but I'm going to be, if you're playing at 28 millimeter, then this is for you. So we're going to take this stuff and this blade, and we're going to cut this into 2.5 inch squares. Now that we have our 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares now, I'm not really sure how many of these things we need for the game. I'm going to make 10 and hope that's enough. I would rather have too many than not enough when I'm in the middle of trying to play a game. So we're going to make 10 of these. So next step for me, so what I don't want in the end result is this gap on the side of the corrugated plastic to show. So I'm going to take this blue painter's tape and I'm going to wrap up the edges. Nice and easy, just like that. So then we're going to repeat that process for all of the others. And now that we have our stack of taped up edges on our corrugated plastic, we're going to tape these things down to a board, take them outside, and give them the good once over with black primer. Now, I am not going to be doing both sides. That's not part of my plan. I'm just going to do the one side so I don't need to worry about flipping them back over, priming on the other side. So let's go get that done. And with all of our friends taped down securely to the board so that they don't blow away, we're going to take this outside, hit it with some flat black primer. And now that all of our beautiful 2.5 by 2.5-ish inch squares are primed and dry, we're going to hit them with that texture paste, with that buyout. We're just going to slap this stuff on there. Not going to be too neat or careful about it. Just going to get them covered. I'm going to take a big old dollop, and I like to kind of start in a corner, roll it off my brush, and then pull it across. Just like putting schmear on a bagel. No difference. Except I would highly recommend not eating this and not wasting good locks on it. The big bonus here of doing that black primer on the bottom is that if you do have a little spot that you missed, it's not really going to show up, as opposed to where if you had left these white or primed them white, you would have to be much more careful with your coverage. I don't want to be careful. I want to be quick so that I can play the game. Ergo, black primer. And here's everybody all top coated up. I am going to put paste on the sides of these, but I got to wait for this coat to dry so that I can hold it and then put the paste on the sides as well. Once we have all of our markers coated on the top and on the sides, now you'll notice there are some gaps there. That's the main reason we wanted to prime that black, so that that doesn't show up. So now we're going to take our glue. This is glue. I know what the container is, but this is glue. and our flocks. And when I do this, I'm going to leave the middle of this open. I'm not going to put any flock there because that's going to be where the fire will sit, so it'll be burnt off. So we're just going to kind of go around the sides. Yeah, just kind of a ratty brush. We don't want to use anything too nice here. Just slop that on there. Doesn't need to be neat, doesn't really need to be full coverage because there could just be natural, patchy spots in the grass. Generally, if I have spots where the texture paste didn't quite cover, I will intentionally try to make sure that I get glue into those areas. But with this, considering that it's going to be partially burnt off, not a huge concern. All right, and again, I'm going to leave the centers open. Some I may do larger open areas, some smaller, because you don't want it all to be the exact same, maybe a little bit off center like this one ended up being. We're going to take our flock. I'm using our, now there are other ways of doing this, but I tend to just kind of use my hands and salt bay it on there. I'm going to use both of these flocks. I'm going to use the darker of the two towards the middle, where everything's burnt off and singeing and scorching. Give that a little tap-a-roo. Clear out the excess flock that we don't need. And then some of the lighter. And this is just like cheap white glue. It's not even Elmer's. It's like the grade below Elmer's. I didn't mix it with anything. None of that. Just poured it from the big jug, painted it on with a kind of crappy brush, and then we're just gonna, sprinkle, and give it a little tappy, and boom. So we're gonna do that for the whole stack. And there we have the flocked product. Now, the white spots that you see, that will go away as the glue dries. And as soon as the glue is dry, we can move on to the very, very last step of preparation to get these things onto the table, which is going to be to blacken up the middles and make it so it looks kind of charred and sooty. Okay, so everything's dry. All the flocking, the glue has dried. We're going to go in here to hit this last step, and then we're going to be ready to put these things on the table for a game of Tusk. So there's numerous ways that you could go about doing this, as I think I've probably already mentioned. You could do this with an airbrush. You could do this with a sponge. You could do this with like proper dry brushing. What I'm going to do, this is my plan, is I'm going to take this matte black paint from the Army Painter. I'm going to give it a good shake. And then I'm going to put a dot. Put a good little dot right in the middle. And I'm going to take this wonderful little makeup brush that I got from the dollar store. And we're just going to take that out right to the edge of the fluff. Just like that. I think maybe I'll use a little bit of a smaller dot next time, but yeah, I think that's going to do just fine. And in a little bit less than 3 minutes or so, we're done with that step. These are ready to hit the table to hopefully ensnare and trap and scare some mammoths into a path where my hunters will be able to address them with extreme prejudice. Thanks so much for tuning in, hanging out while we built some fire markers for Tusk today. I hope you have an absolutely amazing rest of your day.